Welcome back to Listen to Your Heart. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Jerry's heart.
Today's topic, Repatha, evolocumab. Heart, why'd you pick this one?
Well, Jerry, for people who have had a heart attack, like us, diet and exercise might not be enough to lower the risk of another one.
Okay.
To help know if we're at risk, we should be getting our LDL-C, our bad cholesterol, checked, and talking to our doctor.
I'm listening.
And if it's still too high, Repatha can be added to a statin to lower our LDL-C and our heart attack risk.
Guess it's time to ask about Repatha.
Do not take Repatha if you're allergic to it. Serious allergic reactions can occur. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Common side effects include runny nose, sore throat, common cold symptoms, flu or flu-like symptoms, back pain, high blood sugar, and redness, pain, or bruising at the injection site.
Listen to your heart.
Ask your doctor about Repatha. Learn more at repatha.com or call 1-844-REPATHA.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, his caretakers thought he was in a coma, but he was alert the whole time. What did they say to him when they thought he couldn't hear them? We'll discuss the podcast, Blink. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca Lavoie.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
I want you to say Piper to me every time you introduce me now.
No.
Even though we're on a new show, I just want you to say that all the time.
And finally, our resident Doubting Thomas, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin, this is Thursday's program.
Tis.
What's coming up on Monday's show?
Yeah, Monday we're going to talk about the new series from Netflix. It's called Gone Girls, the Long Island Serial Killer.
Featuring our friend, author Bob Kolker.
Bob Kolker.
Yes.
And also the director is
Liz Garbus.
Liz Garbus, who directed Lost Girls, which was the dramatic
Yes.
this
is very
motion
different.
picture.
This
yes,
is very different.
Which got mixed reviews from us.
Yes.
But we're going to take a look at this. This is
This is
documentary.
straighter.
Yeah.
This aligns more with, I think, the Bob Kolkerism of it. It's really interesting. All right, so Kevin, can I just throw something out there at the world?
Throw it out at the world.
We are having a surprise renovation done in our house. I call it a surprise renovation. We're doing a laundry room. We're turning a bathroom and laundry room into one big room. And it was the impetus for it was we were having all sorts of plumbing problems. And they had to rip open a wall. And this was something we were planning to do in a long time from now. But it's like, fuck it. The wall's open. And I don't have to redo
the
plumbing.
lid from the dryer was like being
It was insulating the wall.
It was insulating the wall.
It's
Yeah, because it just
horrible.
wasn't going out the pipe.
Yeah, and like the pipes might have
Leaving
tree
the
roots
pipe.
in them. It's a whole thing.
All
Anyway,
right.
So I just want to say, I have learned how to do something with you that we've never been able to do before.
What's that?
Which is like pick things, like tile and shit. I come up with an incredible system, right?
Yeah.
You want to describe the system?
Yeah, so Rebecca picks like the 15 best, like she can only narrow it down so far.
I want green, you want blue.
Yeah,
So
you asked me, like, okay, well, what kind of... First of all, thank you for asking me.
You're welcome.
What color tile. You didn't ask me about any of the fixtures, though.
Yes, I did. I showed you everything.
Yes, right. Oh, yeah, sure you did.
Oh,
okay.
my gosh.
And so she basically printed off a bunch of stuff and said, go through and put a check next to the one you like, or 2 checks if you really love it, or an X if you don't. And then I went through here the
16 of them.
16, 4, 5, I could live with this. But okay, it's like March Madness rounds. You're just like, let's get to the.
Well, if you like these, you might also like these.
Yeah.
And so then now he has 6 to look at, and we're just like narrowing it down. And eventually we're going to come up with something that Kevin's going to think he picked. It's incredible.
Good think I picked, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, way to manage that.
Interesting.
No,
Manage the expectations.
I actually put a bunch of stuff in the 16 that I thought you might like, but I actually actively did not love. And I was like, if he picks one of these, like I want him to have what he likes too. So it's fine. Like I could, but you ended up nixing all the ones that I thought you would like, and you didn't like them either. So see, it shows you our tastes have aligned.
Yeah, eventually. Hey, can I throw one thing out to the panel here? Just congratulations to a few friends of the show.
Like who?
Well, the Ambies, which is the award given by the Podcast Academy.
Yeah.
That was last week, and the winners include for Best Host,
Podcaster, yeah.
Ronald Young Jr.,
Yeah.
our good friend, and we also saw, Dan Taberski win for Hysterical, which we really love. Some other things that were on our lists included Broomgate, which won Best Sports, Empire City won Best History, and Best True Crime, Beyond All Repair.
Yeah.
And
that
a
was
bunch
a good
of other
winner.
things that we liked were nominated too. But congratulations to Ronald. He was up against like Conan O'Brien and Sam Sanders and all a bunch of like big names. And so we always said he was a
He's a star.
He was a star,
awesome.
and
We love Ronald.
We love him, and we made him who he is.
No, we didn't.
100%. I'm taking credit for Ronald.
No, we just recognized he was talented. And we were like, we better get to know him before he gets really famous. It's definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
No, we love Ronald. He's the best. He's the sweetest, nicest guy in the world, and he deserves all of his success. And I'm so happy that either WBUR or Zach Stewart Pontier paid for that submission for Beyond All Repair, because those awards are not cheap. I'm just saying, they are not cheap. And I'm so glad it won because it totally deserved it.
It's only $150.
Yeah, that's one of the cheaper ones. The Webbies are super expensive.
Fuck wants a Webby
the
award.
Signal Awards cost a fucking fortune. I would say of all of them, the Podcast Academy ones are the least expensive, but they're more expensive still than like the Murrows.
Oh, really?
And they're more expensive than like journalism awards are. Yeah. Anyway.
I entered in a fit of pique when my producer got fired after the first episode of Rip Current came out. I was like, fuck it. I'm going to put it in and I'm going to invite him when we go to the award show and I'll show them.
Oh, Toby.
But I didn't even get nominated. So $150.
All right.
Man.
Should we talk about the podcast we're about to talk about, Kevin?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Let's get that done.
Weird voice, weird balance, falling apart kinda. She's like, you need to go to the hospital. Something's fucking wrong with you. I think deep down I knew probably a good idea, but I didn't want to go.
Jake Haendel was a heroin user diagnosed with a rare brain disease. He soon slipped into a vegetative state and was thought to be brain dead. But Jake was fully aware of his surroundings, unable to move or communicate.
Maybe you shouldn't talk in front of the patient, though. She goes, oh, don't worry, he can't hear you, he's brain dead anyway. And I'm like, what? They think I'm brain dead.
It would be 18 months before doctors realized he was awake, the only known patient to survive locked-in syndrome. But as he returned to the world, Jake had stories about the things said to him when no one thought he could hear them.
It is here, helpless in your hospital bed, that you realize what may have gotten you here in the first place. The scariest thing in your room is no longer the potential of dying, but rather the person sitting right next to you.
In the podcast Blink, host Corrine Vane and Jake Haendel tell the story of his incredible medical journey through the lens of true crime. What was going on when Jake was trapped in his own body, and what caused his condition in the first place? Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from Blink. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. Now, Kevin?
Yeah.
We discussed this before the show, but I think it's fair to say we are halfway through this podcast. It's going to be a 14-episode podcast. We've listened to
14
7.
episodes?
That's what
She
she
says
said,
at the end of episode 7.
All right. Okay.
We have not received what has been promised in this podcast so far. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, but let's talk about what this podcast is and what it isn't, right? Because we have to kind of split it up thematically into medical mystery and true crime. So what this also isn't from a giant podcast studio production. It's a podcast company. It's just listed as Corrine and Jake. It's, a kitchen table podcast. It does punch above its weight. I'm going to have to grade it on a curve. But, I don't know, we could talk a lot about the medical part of this. If you just want to jump to the true crime part, which do you want to talk about first?
Well, what true crime part?
Well, it really has...
There was an assault down the stairs, maybe.
Yeah, it really has under-delivered on the promise of being true crime. There's an implication from the setup that someone, likely the ex, was trying to kill him. Or they're confessing to,
something.
Misdeeds in his ear when he's in a coma. But by episode 7... Like, he's making FaceTime calls to relatives again, so we're kind of led to believe that while he was locked in,
you heard a bunch of stuff.
Somebody confessed that, you heard a bunch of stuff. And there's also like an implication that his condition is not strictly medical, right? There's this great tease, like the person at your bedside is more dangerous than the fatal disease you have, right? And there's some talk in episode 1 about more than one suspected murder attempt. But we're not really seeing like any foreshadowing of that, right? I mean, there are some bad deeds, and Laura alluded to them. But as far as the true crime aspect, it's not really being signposted here. And so that leaves me wondering a lot about it.
Yeah, I think that at this point in the podcast, halfway through the podcast, if it isn't doing what it says it's going to do, then you shouldn't have said it was going to do that. That's just like, that's my take on it. And I hate to say this because it's an otherwise, like, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. Laura, there is a lot of interesting stuff here, is there not?
Yeah, no, I think you've got a story of addiction here. You've got a story of somebody who's overcome a medical condition in a way that now has put them out on the inspirational speaking circuit. Because, of course, I Googled this guy to find out like where he is now. There's a lot of family dynamics. There's a really interesting story of what it was like for him when he was in this coma vegetative state, but actually could hear what everybody around him was saying. So it's an interesting story. But if you look at the cover art for the podcast, it's like deadly betrayal or whatever it was. I was like, that might be a bit of a stretch. I don't know if that was more of like a marketing thing, that it was like, if we do this, this is going to get us the true crime listeners. And maybe they didn't need to do that, because I think the medical story here is actually really interesting. And I think the drug and addiction part is also a pretty good cautionary tale, because who knew that you could do so much heroin that you could have this really unusual medical situation unfold where, you know, you end up not only surviving, but shouldn't have survived based on past research and past cases of people who had something like this. So I think there was enough with the medical part of this to maybe not hype up the crime part. But I'm wondering, like, do we all think we have to have a crime angle to get the listeners now, because the true crime podcast is kind of what kicked off the podcast world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe by episode 14, we're like, oh, that was a really interesting crime. The
only thing we've heard so far about the wife that's damning is that on her Facebook page, she said he was dead, which is not good. Don't get me wrong. That's not good.
It hasn't made payments.
Well, maybe it felt like he was dead because he was in his vegetative state.
Well, she said he was dead, and she said no one come to his funeral because she knew she was lying about him being dead. Like, that's bad. I'm not saying that's not bad.
Okay.
That's bad.
Well, yeah, that's
but
bad.
we don't have any indication that she was whispering in his ear.
Is that a
she,
deadly betrayal? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. But one thing that I do like about this podcast, Toby, is that there are a lot of highly functioning heroin and opioid addicts in the world. There just are. Unlike in Long Bright River, where we're led to assume that everybody who's ever touched a drug their life is out on the streets, you know, selling their bodies and shooting each other. That's not the case. I mean, we are surrounded by highly functioning substance misusers, alcoholics, etc. That's just the fact of it. I like how that's folded in here. I like how it's acknowledged, and I like how his family was behind him anyway, even when he was going through this. 'Cause that's also a very common experience. That being said, it's kind of a common experience, Toby, and the locked in thing is what makes this different, and it might be the only thing. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, I guess that's one of the things, like when I heard her say this is 14 episodes long, I was like, my God. So the stories he tells, like they're engaging. He's an engaging talker, but I guess I just didn't feel 100% invested in how he met his girlfriend. And, you know, they went to a club and he didn't have a ride home. And so he traded drugs for a ride home and stuff. Like, yeah, you know, that's fine.
They had sex. I got to hear about that.
They did have that, which is awesome. Good for them. Yeah, so I was a little bit like the ratio of locked in and fucked up stuff happening that nobody thinks that he can sort of sense, but that he's actually completely aware of, versus just sort of the life this guy had on either side of that period was not what I was expecting. Like, I was definitely expecting a lot more about him during the locked in period and what was going on around him. And maybe that's what comes up in the second half. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's some kind of interesting twist on the normal storytelling that they've got to come. But as of now, it just doesn't seem like that payoff is there. So what we've heard so far isn't like, it's not like it's bad, but the part that seems compelling just seems to take up a fairly small part of the overall so far, I think.
Yeah. But isn't it sort of like a worst nightmare, Toby?
Oh, yeah.
To be unable to even move your eyes or do anything, and nobody knows that you are fully conscious inside?
Oh, yeah. No, it's like literally a nightmare.
Yeah.
My MRI showed this catastrophic brain injury. The white matter was gone. There was no possible way any neurologist thought I was with it at all. Vegetative at best. Disconnected from all reality.
Did anybody see like the diving bell and the butterfly, or the butterfly and the diving bell, or whatever? Yeah. So that's, I mean, they had the same thing, right? Wasn't that locked in?
I think so, but he could communicate through, well, that's where he was doing the letter thing. With his eyes, he was choosing letters.
Yeah, with his eye, but isn't that what this guy was doing too? Wasn't he like...
Later, after he had some rehab.
Not the same condition, but that's a therapy,
Yeah, I'm just not, I'm not sure how you know that somebody had locked in if they then don't survive. Like, how do you know if they're aware?
Exactly. That's why it's a nightmare, Toby.
Right, but I don't know how can they make the claim that he's the first person? I don't know.
He's not, though. He's not the first. Well, I don't say not the first, but like we have this woman from Exeter who came to attention in Exeter when she went to the Paralympics in 2012. Her book, I think, is actually called Locked In. And it's about how when she was 11, she got these 2 rare diseases and went into this vegetative state. And for 2 years, she was just basically like in this vegetative state. In the 3rd year, she can think, she hears everybody, but nobody knows she's there. So it's kind of the same, like...
It might be his specific condition.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's that same thing.
Yeah.
And it is a horrible nightmare. And I ended up reading her book because she came to Exeter Lit Fest one year. She was one of our speakers. But it's like that feeling of everybody's there. It's like one of those dreams. Like, do you guys ever have the nightmare where you're like trying to say something and every time you try to say it and open your mouth, you can't and then you wake up like an anxiety dream? Yeah.
So, Kevin, you know what won't give you anxiety dreams is joining our Patreon.
No, it won't.
No. It's very soothing.
It's
being
very
part of our
soothing.
Patreon. We're in the business section now, FYI.
Yeah. If you'd like to support us at patreon.com/partners in crime media, get all sorts of great things. Join us at the leading off level. You'll get the Crime Writers On after show. We're talking about the season finale of White Lotus.
We are. We're taping it after.
We did like a midnight taping.
That's right.
So that we could all get our hot takes and that you could hear them. You don't have to wait till next week. On Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, this is just like all the other book clubs. You can bring your own white wine if you want. Toby's talking about the book Eden Undone. And you were just giving us, before we started this episode, a little bit of a taste of the crazy plot of this book, this true book.
Yeah, well, it's these 3 different groups of Europeans end up on this deserted island in the Galapagos, including this one woman who's sort of this self-styled baroness who shows up with her 2 lovers and proceeds to put them through the emotional and psychological ringer. She walks around with a pistol and a whip. And,
oh my God.
She's an interesting character.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think I found season 4 of The White Lotus.
Yeah, exactly. It could be. It didn't sound like it was deluxe accommodations for sure, but it's a really interesting read. It's a crazy kind of adventure story. You think about like who would actually decide to maybe spend years, if not the rest of their lives, on a deserted island, and this kind of answers that question. And what could go wrong?
Now, you don't want to be confusing Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club with the Readathon.
That's right.
That's the Karen Reed Trial follow-along podcast that Rebecca does.
Not just the Karen Reed Trial, but the Canton and Norfolk County corruption story.
Yeah, we're getting close to opening arguments in Trial 2, so you'll definitely want to tune in. And
you want to listen to us instead of the prosecutors. You really, really
fuck
do.
Those guys. If you join us at the Bricker scale level, you'll get another exclusive podcast. It is Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. In the last episode, Laura Bricker went drinking, put on a tutu, and then got involved in a snowshoeing race.
That's very on brand.
And very on brand. So, Laura, what is your next adventure that you'll be covering in Leave It to Bricker?
It's also very on brand. I went drinking and went undercover in the ski race world, and I uncovered a scandal.
Oh, I love it when she solves a mystery, or at least a mystery to her.
Yeah.
In her quaint AF state of New Hampshire. If you join us at the Let's Do What We Do level, you can get episodes of Crime Writers on early and ad-free. And if you're a deep diver, not only can you listen to the Deep Dive Book Club podcast, you can watch the panels do it, partake in the chat section. Those chats get very busy, do they not, Toby?
Yes, the chat section can definitely get busy. I wish people would like hop in on the conversations a little bit more, but there's a lot of like sort of chatting from the side and making comments, occasionally asking a question.
Kevin doesn't wish that because he has to edit it.
I'm fine.
It doesn't matter. These days it doesn't matter because it's all just on
kidding.
the same.
Oh, thanks for telling me the production doesn't matter. It's just as good for
well,
Kevin.
It used to be where it'd be like all three of us would be taping things separately, and then there would be, somebody would come in, and then they would have to go from the master recorder or whatever. And now everything is just being done through Riverside, which as we go through that, I'm like, oh, Kevin's going to have to deal with that. Oh, Kevin's going to have to deal with that. And occasionally we actually even talk about it, like we did when we were recording before. I was like, oh, well, that'll keep Kevin busy.
Yeah, we hear that quite a bit. We have an Amazon storefront where you can see some of our favorite things. Rebecca, what are this week's Amazon recommendations from Crime Writers On?
I've got a very personal one.
Mm-hmm.
You know how I love this Stonewall Kitchen Maine blueberry jam, right?
Yeah.
I don't even like blueberries that much, and I freaking love the Stonewall Kitchen blueberry jam. It's so good. Well, Stonewall Kitchen usually comes in these teeny little jars. They sell a big old fat jar of it on Amazon, and I just ordered it. It's 30 ounces of Stonewall Kitchen's blueberry jam, and I'm telling you, that's like a week and a half's worth for me, tops.
Oh my goodness.
No tariff involved, by the way.
You going to mix it with your gummy bears?
No. I put it on my English muffin.
Ooh, wow.
So good.
Hey, Toby, what are your listener-inspired Toby Ball's deep cut recommendations?
Hoppy's number 9 gun bore cleaner, 16-ounce bottle, and then in parentheses, packaging may vary, which seems a little sus, to be honest with you, but there you go.
We don't know who packaged it today. Could be someone completely different.
That's right.
This one's it's a little bit of a journey. Advanced long-range laser pointer, high power, rechargeable green beam laser pointer with star cap, versatile laser pen for astronomy construction.
Huh.
What the hell is that?
Astronomy construction?
Kevin, which Jedi would you be if you had a green laser pointer?
A green laser? I think you would be Luke.
Okay. Just
I don't know. I was once in a meeting sitting at the far end of the table near the projector, and somebody was giving the thing and they didn't know what the fuck to do with the laser pointer and got me right in the face, in the eye with it, and I'm like, no. I always heard this is really bad.
Laser, no.
Yeah, let's get shot with my own laser here. All right. Hey, you know what? All you got to do is shop us first. When you go to Amazon, amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. Those are all words that you can remember. And take a look at our stuff, then go on and do your other shopping. We earn commissions on qualified purchases.
All right, Kevin.
Yeah.
Before we end the business section, I have to ask if we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week.
Our Patreon patron saints are Danielle Wainwright and Jackie Bruno. Bless you.
Danielle and Jackie, you guys rule. Thank you so much for being part of our Patreon family. You too could become a Patreon patron saint of the week if you're part of our Patreon at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. The prize is just being called a Patreon patron saint of the week. It's a high stakes contest. All right, Kevin, does thus end our business section?
Thus ends the business section.
Let's fade that music out right now. So, Kevin, who's the next sponsor for this fine program?
Oh, we're brought to you by HelloFresh.
HelloFresh.
Make deciding what's for dinner a lot easier with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. It's easy to find time to eat well with 50 wholesome, hassle-free meals to choose from each week, delivered to your door. Plus, HelloFresh's new ready-made meals go from the fridge to your fork in just 3 minutes with all the same high-quality ingredients and restaurant-worthy flavor you can expect from HelloFresh.
Kevin, you know, there's a thing that people say about growing up, right? Growing up is just deciding what you're going to eat over and over and over again.
For the rest of your life,
That's hard, right?
Yes, it is very hard. Well, it can be hard, but it's It's easier for your family with HelloFresh because they put together great recipes and give you all. It's like they 3D printed these recipes.
Oh, wow.
They just come up and say, here's everything that you need. But sometimes, like, you don't even have enough time to get from one podcast recording to the next.
That's right.
I know a lot of people can relate to that situation.
Absolutely, much less decide what I'm going to eat later.
So these ready-made meals are fantastic. You pop them in the microwave and you've got some wonderful stuff to eat for your family right away.
So get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast.
HelloFresh Podcast.
One item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast.
HelloFresh Podcast.
So, Kevin, who's the next sponsor on the show?
Oh, we're brought to you by Quince.
Oh, Quince.
Yeah, are you getting ready for that spring travel season?
Yes.
Here's why you got to go to Quince. I've got 2 great reasons, all right?
Yeah.
So you want to treat yourself to luxurious upgrades. So you want Quince's high-quality travel essentials. You need them at a fair price. Things like the lightweight European linen styles for $30.
Kevin, you have that shirt.
I do, and I love it. It's easy to wash. It's super comfy. And in addition to buying all this great clothes to go on a trip, what are you going to put it in?
A suitcase?
You can get premium luggage options and stylish tote bags, all to carry it in. All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands because they partner directly with the top factories, cutting out the middleman, passing the savings on to you.
Listen, you want to go on vacation, and it is fun to bring new stuff because then you've never worn it before and you get to wear it in a different place. I love Quince so much.
For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades that you deserve from Quince.
Go to quince.com/crime for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
Crime.
If you don't know about our flyer deals on Instacart, this message is for you. Flyer deals are like strolling through your favorite store looking for deals, but instead, you're scrolling on your phone. Because getting delivery doesn't mean you have to miss out on in-store deals, like the creamer that doesn't upset your stomach, or the pasta sauce that you can't not buy when it's on sale. Download the Instacart app, shop flyers, and never miss a deal. Plus, get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes.
So, Kevin, a few weeks ago, we reviewed a podcast called Stalked, where the subject of the podcast was also a co-host of the podcast. We have that again here. How does this decision compare to that decision last time? Because last time that was a controversial one for the 4 of us. I didn't mind it, but some of you did.
Yeah, I mean, I think here it makes sense to add Jake as a co-host and producer, because unlike in Stalked, where Hannah was, both the subject and the producer, which really raised those questions about, like, okay, is she going to be honest with her story, and are they going to confront her about different things and, stuff like that? I mean, Jake's story is so interior. He's the only one who can tell it. And this could be like all Corrine just being purely detached interrogator and then like explaining what happened. That would be one way to go. But I think it's really hard to see where Jake, at least up to now, has not been completely candid about his past life, the things that he went through, in the hospital and whatnot. So I don't know. I guess I really don't have a problem with him. I guess if it were the first time I ever heard that, I might go, but I think it makes sense here for me. Maybe everybody else disagrees.
Laura, I think that it does help here. I really liked Stalked. I think that you guys know that. But what we have here that I really like also is the corroborating voices, in particular Jake's stepfather, who's in the podcast a lot, who, it's not that I think Jake isn't telling the truth, it's that everybody has their own version of their own story, right?
Right.
And the fact that you have this guy coming in, this incredibly empathetic man who's a really important figure in his life, it actually, I think, adds to it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I was a little worried when it started off and it was like the 2 of them and they're like, we met in our building and we're going to tell this story. And then it started going on and I was like, oh no. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was thinking, how are we going to actually show other perspectives on this story? So when Eli, the stepfather, comes in and you hear about how his parents are getting divorced and how he met the mother, but he originally wanted to go out with the other lady, but then let the other lady know he liked his mother. And you hear about these 2 families blending. and how they became close and how they had children the same age.
And then we wound up moving in together and getting married and having another kid. She had a 3-bedroom house. There were 2 big bedrooms upstairs and a little bedroom downstairs. She had 1 big bedroom. Jake had the other big bedroom. And then my 2 kids shared the little one. That's the way it goes, you know.
When his mother ends up, dying from cancer, Eli's a part of his life while he is in the hospital, while this is happening, who can then also say, yeah, I was also having a hard time with Ellen. Like, she was not letting us in, and she was not telling us what was happening. And, she didn't want anyone else to do anything. And she was furiously going around the room or whatever. I think that really gave some extra context that, kind of bolstered the story out as you're listening to it in a way that for me felt like, I don't want to say credible, but in a way that felt like authentic.
What did you think about the Ellen storyline, Toby? I mean, here we have this young woman that he's married to. We hear that he aided her in also becoming a heroin user, and their relationship does not sound perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But when he gets sick and has to be hospitalized, she takes on this new outsized role.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard of this. I mean, I've seen it before, which is, somebody takes it upon themselves to be the primary caregiver, make all the decisions, go way above and beyond what would be expected. And then the sort of flip side of that is they think that gives them kind of control over everything that happens around this person.
My sister would come over and she'd be like, what can I do to help? And then she'd do something for me. And Ellen would kind of snap at her and be like, you're not doing it right. Just leave. People wanted to help, but no one wanted to get verbally abused. If it wasn't her way, then get the fuck out.
And it's kind of justified just by the sheer amount of time and effort that she's putting into keeping him alive, I guess. So again, I agree with Laura in that I think one of the real strengths of this is that the relationships that are described feel real. I mean, not that they wouldn't be, but they do a good job of describing them and giving you an understanding of what was kind of going on sort of behind the scenes as Jacob was going through this recovery, and how without his being able to have any influence on what was going on, people in his life with competing interests and competing amounts of engagement were they weren't even really negotiating, I mean, she was kind of calling the shots and people were getting frustrated. So anyway, yeah, I think that's a real strength of this podcast.
What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, when you're looking at Ellen, I mean, you have this mercurial caretaker who pushes away like everybody in his family, isolates him, and she seems to get something out of being the only caretaker. It's not Munchausen at all, but, it is something like...
There's a power dynamic for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of it's not an insignificant fact that she's also allegedly on heroin this whole time too, that she just started taking, but it certainly seems like that her motives are not completely altruistic in the way that she has been taking care of Jake. And, what we do have, I think they are sort of hinting that when it comes to the crime, that this is the suspect. But of course, all we really have here is that, like I said, there's this shoving incident. Something happened on the stairs, the fake funeral, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid bills that there must have been money going somewhere. So I don't know if we're being set up for a con story or a financial crime or whatever else. We already talked about the crime, the aspect of it, that it's underperforming and under-delivering in that area. But I'm with you guys. I think Jake's story is fantastic, and he is his own best storyteller.
I think so too, but I think that it's too long. And I think that these, so this is my issue with the podcast. We're halfway in, and I feel like I've listened to material that should have been 2 to 3 episodes tops.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jake's story is fascinating. I'm telling you, the hospital trajectory of being totally locked in and going and just describing how the therapy works and making progress, and him trying to be empathetic about why his wife might not be talking to him and all that stuff. It's so interesting. But the extended telling of it, the fact that he's unedited and it's just these long paragraphs of him talking, takes some of the punch away from some of the more interesting details. A really good example of that for me is he's talking about when he was a kid that he was this basically is like a born salesman, right? And he used to bring sodas to school and sell them and for like $20. And then he moved to the richer school district. And it was like, that's a great character development story if someone to sort of look back on their own thing. But then we heard some of the same details again and again and again, even in that story. So everything just felt very like, in order to sort of give Jake his turn and his voice, he did not get the edit he deserved to get, in my opinion. So I think that this has been slow and long, even though I can acknowledge that a lot of what he's saying is super interesting. I think it would have been more interesting if it were tighter. Laura, what do you think? You seem to agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I had a note about how if they were going to give that level of detail to that degree, it really would have fit better in like a nonfiction book sort of setting as opposed to the podcast, because you don't know, like, why are you listening to this part? Like, I was hoping for some more like signposting or kind of like, oh, and now we're going to hear this and this is going to be really interesting, or like something to kind of keep you going on with this story to propel the story forward, because the level of detail was so much that it did feel like it was too long. But then I'm thinking like, here's this poor guy who couldn't talk, who was in his comatose state, like let the poor guy talk. But I'm also like, let him talk. And maybe this wasn't the vehicle for him to talk to that length, because his story, like he's on like the inspirational speaking circuit. When he goes on that, he's probably giving like a 45-minute talk. So he's got his story condensed down for that. And I feel like not condensing it takes away the power of the story in the way that you're hearing it and digesting it and reflecting on it.
I think that you can make someone sound like they're talking extemporaneously and weren't edited with a strong edit. Like you can make it sound like a cohesive, this is how he told it to beginning to end, and we get that experience while not having to wonder, like, why am I hearing this part again? Why am I hearing this part again? And that's, I think, a disservice in some ways to it, because he is a likable guy, right, Toby? I mean, you can't help but like him. I mean, I think she might feel like she has to in some way show he's likable because she met him and he has an unusual story and she knows she's going to be telling this dark story about addiction and stuff. But he comes across like very plainly likable, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is necessarily true, but I do think, like, I don't know if there was somebody, if they had like a third party who was editing this stuff or anything, but I'm not sure that people are the best judges about what people want to hear about their own stories, you know?
Right.
And that, oh no, you're not going to get it unless you get this particular detail, which is really meaningful for you, but for people who don't know you and are just hearing the story, maybe doesn't matter that much. Right. So I kind of got at times into like, is this going to be on the test mode? Whereas like, you know, is this something I really need to keep in mind as we go forward? Or is this like kind of an amiable story by this guy who, you know, he's got a harrowing tale and he tells it with a lot of humility, doesn't seem, at least to the point we're at, to hold grudges. And I think realizes the difficult situations that he, through no fault of his own, but because of this occurrence, has put people in, and how they're making complicated and difficult choices because of his condition. So I totally agree with you that, especially if this is going to be 14 episodes, like get to the essence of things. Like we don't need to know everything. We need to know the important things to telling the story, and like a couple of stories about him and like how entrepreneurial he was or whatever. Like you should think about how much time of the total time that you're going to be telling the story you want to devote to something like that. And I think it deserves to be brought up so we have a better sense of him, but kind of get in and out quickly and then move on to the next thing.
Right. Kevin, this is not just the storytelling. There's also some writing here. What are your thoughts about how it was put together, the glue of the podcast, the writing?
Yeah, well, let me just say the other thing there. 14 episodes, you're right, is extremely long for a series. I'm trying to remember. 10 episodes, it's 12 episodes is really long. 14, I feel like what they could have done was maybe, without having listened to the last 7, I feel like this could have been 8 or 10 if they had edited better and maybe just made the individual episodes just a little longer to accommodate. I think Jake would be the first to admit they're a little disadvantaged because of his speech pattern that he has after having gone through that.
Fine.
Oh yeah, but he's a slow talker, right?
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
But if you're like going to be clinical about how do we edit this, you don't want to go through and cut out all those pauses and stuff and squish it together, make it unnatural. But like the transcript would read a lot thinner than it otherwise would, because it does take him some time. So you're right. There's like ways to edit that to let him still have his own voice in both the literal sense and in the artistic sense, but also move it along to picking the right things. The writing isn't perfect. I mean, there are some really great passages, I think, that are here, but, they're like mixing past and present tenses. Yeah, that's not great. Again, if you're talking about, here's Jake and here's what happened to him, to use it present tense, I don't know.
It's disorienting.
It is a little disoriented, and some of it really reads like it was written for the page, and when you say it out loud, it doesn't have the same kind of ring and syntax, but that's sort of something that you get over time when you write for a lot. And, again, when they say, I want to grade on a curve here, I'm going to say, that you probably could have had some help there. But again, it's just this whole thing where there's a lot of good stuff here, and maybe if we'd been a little more brutal about what we keep and how we edit this together, we could have gotten this into a more conventional size podcast series instead of going, having a 2 or 3 week break right in the middle of the run. Yeah.
If you share a fridge with someone, Instacart can make grocery shopping so much easier. With family carts, you'll share a cart and each add what you need. Between the two of you, odds are you'll remember everything. So no more milkless cereal. Minimize the stress of the weekly shop with family carts. Download the Instacart app and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply for 3 orders in 14 days. Excludes restaurants.
Hey, it's me, Paige DeSorbo, and I'm so excited to share my new shoe collection at DSW, filled with my favorite styles and trends for spring. Because if you know me, you know I'm kind of obsessed with shoes. And by kind of obsessed, I mean head over heels. You're going to love these shoes, so snag super cute styles like cute flats, fun heels, and cool sneakers from the Paige DeSorbo collection right now at your DSW store or dsw.com.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out the podcast Blink? Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for this podcast?
I'm going to go thumbs sideways with this podcast. I think Jake's story is a really interesting story. It's not something we've heard before in terms of somebody that's had a medical condition where they're essentially trapped in their own body. So I think it's a really interesting medical story about, somebody that has overcome quite a bit. It's a family story. It's a story of addiction. I don't so far think it's necessarily a true crime story, but that could be proven wrong. I think my issue and why I'm going thumb sideways, I think it's really great that he's telling a story, because imagine being trapped in your body for that long and not being able to speak, and now being able to speak everything that you want to speak about what happened. Unfortunately, I think in doing that, this maybe went a little bit longer, where things could have been edited in a way so that that story still had like a more of an impact. And so I think it's interesting. I don't know if I'm going to keep listening, because I think 14 episodes is like way too long. But I definitely went and like read all the articles about this case, because it was fascinating. And it's fascinating to hear about somebody that's overcome something like this and see where they are now. So I'm going to go thumb sideways for this.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Blink?
Yeah, I think I'm a thumb sideways too. I guess it's like a 2-person operation, in which case, hats off. It sounds really good. I mean, the real thing I think is it's too long. I think there needed to be some choices that were made about what got included, what didn't get included. There's a lot of time spent on things that aren't necessarily central to the story, but are sort of more important about getting to know Jacob, who is a compelling, certainly comes off as honest guy, and for a certain amount, I'd love to hear about his story. We just spent a lot of time with it. Other than that, though, I think, the story itself is really crazy. I just wish they'd spent more time on it. Maybe the second half will have more on it. And I think it makes a promise of true crime stuff that we're halfway into, and it hasn't even sort of begun to deliver. So anyway, it's a thumb sideways. And if it had been short, if they could have just cut it down a little bit more, I think it would be more compelling.
Kevin Flynn.
I have to go sideways, because if this were just a true crime story, this would be a big thumbs down. But if this is also just Jake's story, the whole medical thing, this would be thumbs up for me. So I guess the two things kind of even each other out. It's not bad. And I'm really pulling for these two producers here. It's a great accomplishment for them to get this podcast produced and to be on the charts and making some money for it. And that's the dream. And, congratulations to them on that. We scheduled this now because I had no idea it was going to be 14 episodes. And we certainly thought the narrative would have progressed much farther by this point, and it really hasn't. So it does suffer from some editorial choices here that it really could have been tighter to the betterment of the story, to engage the listener even better. Because what's here, certainly Jake's story about his medical journey, is super fascinating. And this promise that there is somehow some nefarious angle that plays into his inability to speak because he's locked in, there doesn't seem to really be any of that. And if there is, they're doing a really poor job of signposting it or foreshadowing. So I hope for those that stick around for the next 7 episodes that there's a payoff, and maybe there's still time for a rewrite to get there faster. But for me, I'm just going to have to say it's just a thumb sideways.
I'm a sideways as well. I will say Corrine is not an amateur podcaster. She's on another podcast that's very successful. So she's not like new to the audio industry and new to this business. So it's not like, we have somebody like Mandy, who made the Murdoch Murders, like literally at her kitchen table with one channel going and the other channel not going. It's not like that.
Yeah, no.
It's not that.
No, it's good music too.
What strikes me about this is it feels like in order to sell this, in order to get, an ad deal, or in order to get something, in order to be able to PR this, there had to be a log line that somebody thought would be the appealing log line. An equally appealing log line is, what if everyone thinks you're in a coma, but you can hear everything? That to me is an equally appealing log line. And that's what this is. This isn't you're never going to believe what he heard. I mean, maybe that's coming, but we're halfway through and it hasn't yet. So I don't think that that's what it is. It feels like this got, for lack of a better word, the marketing of it got sexed up in betrayal of the real story here. So I definitely went into it thinking I was going to hear one thing. And so that experience as a listener, it actually degrades my enjoyment of the podcast because I found myself just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen at the expense of not really enjoying the things that were happening to a level I should have and appreciating them, because this is a really interesting story, and it's interesting enough that a guy was locked in and no one knew it, and that his rehab story is fascinating. It really is. So because of that split in like stated intention versus what it is, and how I think it could have been sold equally well with what it actually is, and because of the lack of editorial choice making that would have made this tighter and would have had it made the things that were high impact have higher impact, I have to go sideways. Even though I think Corrine's great, I think Jake is great. For the most part, I didn't hate listening to it. I think people will find it interesting, but should be tighter and shouldn't have this packaging is my thumb sideways reasons. All right, before we go, Laura Bricker, I have a question to ask you. Do we have a cat of the week this week?
We do. It's actually a dog, Rebecca.
Oh, yeah, my favorite kind of cat.
I know. This comes to us from Jen, and Jen has a bit of an unusual cat of the week. And she says she'll understand if it's not eligible, but she had to give it a shot. My cat of the week is a fictional character.
Jen, we've had an iguana. It's fine.
We had a person once.
Yeah.
I know. So this is a fictional character inspired by her actual pet. He's a dog we refer to as the News Hound, and is the mascot of the online publication of striking Pittsburgh Post-Gazette workers. Picture of the mascot as well as picture of real-life dog are attached.
I know who sent this in. Hi, Jen.
We have been on strike since October 2022, the longest ongoing strike in the country right now. From the beginning, we've been putting out an online strike paper called the Pittsburgh Union Progress, or PUP.
Incredible.
And soon after, I designed the News Hound as a mascot, modeling him loosely after one of my family's own rescue pups, Gunner. I could gush about Gunner all day, but that's a whole different email. I know this might be a weird submission, but as writers and journalists, I hope you'd appreciate our strike paper mascot. And by the way, I love the mascot, but I also love the dog.
Yeah. I also love these workers who are standing up for what's right. and not capitulating. Good for you, and good for you for being creative while you're doing it and keeping people informed. I'm very, very proud of you, and I'm happy to count myself among you as a fellow journalist. All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you online and submit any kind of animal, even a fictional one or an iguana, to be Cat of the Week, how can they find you?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky.
What do you think, Toby Ball? How can you be found?
I think I can be found at Toby Ball NH.
What about you, Kevin?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
You can follow me everywhere at Reb Lavoie, and you can follow the show everywhere at Crime Writers On. But mostly, we encourage you to join our incredible Facebook group. Go to Facebook, find us, hit the link to join the group. If you know literally any one of the 4 of our names, we'll let you in. The other questions are just, they're just fluff.
Make sure you're not a bot.
Get everything we make on Patreon at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the truly wonderful Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin, and he's wearing another plaid shirt.
I am.
This show was recorded in Studio C, the closet on New Hampshire basement, where we also are careful not to drop a fork on our nuts. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
But I didn't even get nominated, so $150.
Well, you can write that off on your taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah, my accountant told me I could write a gun off this year.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
do all podcasters get to write off guns, or just some?
He said, I'm kidding. Well, not really.
You guys remember what Oliver Putnam said in episode 1 of Only Murders in the Building when they were talking about all is not okay in Oklahoma?
What'd he say?
He said, I'm all for a good peeling of the onion, but pace it up, people, please.
In crime media.
At Designer Shoe Warehouse, we believe that shoes are an important part of, well, everything.
From first steps to first dates, from all-nighters to all-time personal bests.
From building pillow forts to building a life.
For all the big and small moments that make up your whole world, DSW is there. And we've got just the shoes. Find a shoe for every you from brands you love at brag-worthy prices at your DSW store or DSW.com.